All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, following the injury to starting pitcher Max Scherzer on May the 18th, there were plenty of people that expected the New York Mets to take a nosedive in the standings. However, that has not been the case as the Mets have risen to the occasion, and in the process, they've been able to extend their lead in the National League East. Now, since the Scherzer injury, the Mets are 10-3, which includes winning their last six, as they have consecutive series sweeps over the Philadelphia Phillies and the Washington Nationals. Now, the bats of the Mets have really woken up as they've scored eight or more runs in five out of their last eight games. New York now has a 10.5 game lead over the second place Atlanta Braves in the division, which now gives them a sizable cushion until they get reinforcements from their rotation. You think about where this lineup has been in recent games. Francisco Lindor has really stepped up. Pete Alonso has been consistent for the Mets all season long. 13 home runs, 47 runs batted in. You think about the new additions, the likes of Starling Marte and Mark Canha, who have really stepped up. Luis Guillorme is really swinging a hot bat, and the same can be said about Jeff McNeil. In the rotation as well, guys have stepped up. You think about Chris Bassett, Tyler McGill, Taiwan Walker, and Carlos Carrasco continue to give the Mets solid outings each time that they take the bump. And with that said, as I'm talking about the Mets, Stephen A, how are you doing? I know that you're happy right now. The Mets are winning, and on top of that, yes, the New York Rangers did take Game One tonight, and I think that's going to be a very epic series between the Blue Shirts and, of course, the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. But yeah, with the Mets right now, this team, they are cooking with gas. And if you're a Met fan, you have to like what you've seen from this team so far, because the word of the day or the word of the season so far from the Mets has definitely been resiliency. And I think that is a credit to their manager, Buck Showalter, because, and this goes back to when Steve Cohen first purchased this team back towards the end of 2020. And it's all about the culture change within this organization. And you see that because you bring in Buck Showalter, you bring back Sandy Alderson, you bring in Billy Epler, and now these are the guys that Steve Cohen wanted. And now you see the trickle down effect to this team because with the past regime of the Wilpons, with all of the injuries that the Mets currently have, this team would have taken a nosedive and they would never have been in this situation in the first place, because I don't think that Fred and Jeff would have gone out there and hired Buck Showalter to begin with. Then on top of that, you look at Buck Showalter, he has his team prepared on a daily basis to go out there and play. You think about last week when the Mets were in Frisco against the Giants. Yes, it was a losing effort, but for them to come back like they did in that contest that they did lose uh 13-12, that speaks volumes. And this is a time of year where teams develop character. This is where, we see what teams are made of. And you think about it, no Jacob DeGrom, no Max Scherzer in this rotation. The guy that gets the ball every fifth day, who is taking the mound for this team, he's stepping up. The bullpen is stepping up. And, you think about the struggles of the Philadelphia Phillies. You think about the Atlanta Braves, how they can't get out of their way. Well, the bottom line is the Mets continue to go out there and win series. And you think about following the Scherzer injury, the Mets took the series from St. Louis. They took the series on the road against Colorado. They lost 2 out of 3 against San Francisco. But then you look how this team responded. They came back home and swept the Philadelphia Phillies over the weekend. Then they just took 3 games from a Washington Nationals team that they were expected to beat. And guess what? They went out there and took care of their business. But you think about this pitching staff from the Mets as a whole. Their team ERA of 3.70 is currently fifth in the National League. They consistently get quality starts from their guys. And most importantly, whether it's the lineup, the rotation, or the bullpen, guys continue to pick each other up, and that is important on teams that want to go to the postseason. And these are character wins that we're continuously seeing from the Mets on a night in and night out basis as they look to keep the momentum going for themselves, like now into the month of June. Like I said, resiliency has been the name of the game, and that's going to be important because this is going to be a very tough patch for the Mets coming up. They've got four over the weekend in LA against the Dodgers, which will then be followed by three on the road in the 619 against the San Diego Padres, and they have three in Anaheim against the Angels before they're back home for a three-game set with the Milwaukee Brewers. Who, the Mets at this point, I really do feel they are going to be a postseason team. So all of these teams that I just mentioned, who they're playing, there's a possibility that they could face each one of them coming up in the month of October. But listen, right back at you, Stephen A. Much love to you as well. And I'm looking at the Mets right now. This is a team that I think will be postseason bound because when you have the type of lead that they have, this early in the season, there's a good chance for them to make the postseason. I know that, some skeptical people out there are going to go back to 2007 and talk about how the Mets blew that lead late in the year. Different team, different organization, you name it. But nonetheless, I'm looking at this upcoming road trip that the Mets are going to have on the left coast. And it's a situation where if you're the Mets and in those 10 games, if you can come out of this 5-5 or better, I think that is really going to be telling for this team going forward. And aside from that, you look at this club right now, when they take the field every single day, they're brimming with confidence. And on top of that, they are fearless. And I think, again, this plays back to the manager because Buck Showalter has this team ready to play on a night in and night out basis. Buck Showalter is a Hall of Fame manager. Make no mistake about it. You think about what he did to help the turnaround for the New York Yankees in the early 90s, along with Gene Michael. And I know that there are people out there that might not know this. The Yankees were bad before Buck and Gene Michael got going, and they really turned things around for that organization. You think about what Buck did to get things started with the Arizona Diamondbacks when they were an expansion team. And of course, he didn't reap the benefits of the team winning a World Series championship under his watch. That went to Bob Brenly. But nonetheless, Buck got things rolling there. Taking over with the Texas Rangers, then with the Baltimore Orioles, and the Orioles were just as bad as they have been in recent years. That's how bad they were before Buck Showalter got there. And in spite of the tight pockets of their owner Peter Angelos, it was a situation for Baltimore. They were a perennial playoff team. And you think about the AL East at that time. You had Baltimore, you had Toronto, you had Tampa, you had the Yankees, you know, and you also had the Boston Red Sox. So all of these teams were contending with not one another, and Bucks teams were no slouches. And this is the same thing that we're seeing right here this year in the National League. Because you think about it, I still think the Braves are going to get it going at some point. The Phillies, they're going to get it going at some point as well. Whether that's going to mean, having to fire Joe Girardi, which I do think is going to happen, unfortunately for his case. But you think about the Dodgers, you think about the Brewers, you think about the Padres. Nonetheless, the Mets under Buck Showalter can hold their own with all of these respective teams, and I think that is a huge testament to what he does when he takes over a franchise. And the Mets are finding that out firsthand this season. And like I said, he has this team poised. He has this team ready to go. And because of that, I think the Mets are going to hold their own on this upcoming world road trip. I don't think that I'm not going to go out there and say that the Mets are going to go 8-2, 9-1 on this trip, but nonetheless, I think that they're going to take the field with confidence and they're going to be ready to go. So you look at things right now in the NL East. Philadelphia is 12 and a half back. They were able to squeak one out against the San Francisco Giants today and save face, after dropping the first couple of games in that series. I still think that the young Miami Marlins, they're going to be a spoiler for some contenders in this division. The Nats, they've fallen off off of the pace very early on. They're 17 back, and sooner rather than later, they're definitely going to throw in the towel. But nonetheless, the Mets have put themselves in a solid position. They continue to take care of their business, and just think, they're going to get Scherzer back at some point. They're going to get DeGrom back at some point. They're going to get James McCann back at some point. And then on top of that, Sandy Alderson and Billy Epler are going to make moves and they're going to be active at the trade deadline because you have an owner in Steve Cohen who's giving them the green light. You know what? Do whatever you got to do to win. So, with that said, if you're a Met fan, you definitely want to go out there and think about the postseason. Not saying that this team is going to be a World Series team, not saying that they're going to win this division, but they have definitely put themselves in a very good spot so far this season. So let's see if the Mets can continue this role as they head out to the West Coast, and let's see what the next couple of weeks have in store for the Metropolitans. So, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank everybody who chimed in tonight. Always much love to Stephen A for chiming in. Listen, this guy is a diehard Met fan, and I also always appreciate the support. And you know what? On a side note, with another sport in regards to another New York team, hopefully it's. I mean, it's been a long time coming for the blue shirts to have that parade down the Canyon of Heroes. And I could tell you one thing: I remember 1994, and I remember what led up to that, as far as the Rangers having to hear the 1940 chants for so long before they finally, were able to get over the hump. But I will say this: if the Rangers can find a way to win 7 more games, obviously they got to win 3 more in this series, and the Lightning are a very tough team. And then on top of that, you got to deal with either Colorado or Edmonton potentially in the Stanley Cup final. Nonetheless, if the Rangers can find a way to get that done, the Big Apple is definitely going to go crazy. And of course, Stephen A is just chiming in. Yes, we want the cup. But folks, if you like what you saw and heard tonight, please feel free to hit the like button as well as subscribing to this channel. Appreciate the support, appreciate the love. Try to come out here and give you quality stuff as frequently as possible. If you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin. I am signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.